Mercedes is the team that I have no idea which way they're going to go.
Yeah, we know we don't. I mean, they could
every single race they go, oh, we've understood the car, and then the next race, the car didn't work at this track. They're the ones that have no direction, and they're the ones that I find least convincing in terms of coming back at Red Bull, and the fact that they're losing people suggests on the outside, the optics of it are that the employees at that organization are voting with their feet.
But you're right. People are talking by their actions, right? You're not hearing words, but you're seeing actions, and actions where people are just heading out for the exit. And I think Red Bull simultaneously on the other side is going through something like that of its own, although you would not have predicted for it to happen quickly, but for an entirely different set of circumstances.
Correct.
There's stuff happening to it. And I think this is very interesting to see these two teams being juxtaposed against each other, right? And you're seeing people leave in waves, in part because, they feel like, they can go and make an impact somewhere else. And you kind of sort of expect that, right? I keep coming back to the Pat Riley quote, which is winning brings in a lot more problems.
How often do the broadcast team at Sky, Autosport, the race, how often do they get accused of British bias?
I'm one of them who accuses them of that, and I wouldn't say bias. It's just more a fanboying. That's what I would say.
Tell me what this is a tough word. Tell me that this is not the same thing.
No, it isn't.
Tell me that it's not the same thing. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Tired F1 Pod. I am so tired. Ammar, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm actually feeling much better than I guess you are today.
That's good. At least one of us is.
Yeah, we try here.
Yeah, right. We are less than a week ahead of the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, and the big news is that there are some more upgrades coming.
Yeah.
Upgrade City.
Upgrades.
So Ferrari and Mercedes are coming with some big changes. Ferrari are coming with a completely new car, by the sounds of things. The SF24 Evo, as it's being dubbed. Look at you.
We're coming, man. We're coming.
And Mercedes are doing something similar as well, but they're coming with the second half of the update that they put on the car in Miami. So we're going to get into a little bit of that, and also a little bit of personnel swapperage that's been happening over the past week, and just officially announced by Ferrari today. So.
Yes.
Let's start with Ferrari.
All right.
My Formula Uno went spy spotting, and they were taking some pictures of the SF24 at Fiorano this week. Ferrari were essentially doing a filming day, and part of it was to test the new spray guards that the FIA are trying to develop in an effort to allow the cars to race in the wet, which is, I think, a story that we're going to need to talk about at some point, but maybe we'll hit pause on that one. But the interesting thing is the car that was following the mudguard car was the heavily updated SF24, and Formula Uno got a whole bunch of pictures of it, and people have been doing a whole bunch of deep dives, and it does look different. The big changes are that the side pods now look different. So rather than the underbite that Ferrari launched with, it's got an overbite and a much a inlet, and the little S duct that they had at the base of the car has been switched over for a vertical slot, and now the inlet looks much more like what Mercedes started the season with. I have to say, I'm no aerodynamicist, so I have very little understanding of what this all means. It does look like a big fat change.
It does. I am super excited because Ferrari has been competitive all year long. They won a race. Actually, kind of looking back at the Miami race, I feel like they did have a shot at winning the race if the safety car had come in at a different time, but that's a different debate for another day. All that said, this is very exciting. But my first thought is, I would love to be in the business where I'm paparazzi taking pictures of cars. Like that would be my dream career. So I guess I missed my calling in that regard. But this is great. This is great news for us, right? The big caveat to all of this is my fingers are crossed that the upgrades work the way we think they do, because generally I think it does work out, and I think Ferrari have solved all the correlation issues between, you know, what they kind of put together in test versus actual sort of performance. So I can't wait to see what that looks like. But if we are to believe that all those upgrades work as intended, then I'm really intrigued to see what the battle with Red Bull will look like. And I'm going to throw McLaren in there for a second, but if Ferrari have taken that next jump, then I presume that they'll be that much ahead of McLaren. I don't know. I'm just kind of going off of what we're seeing right now, but it is an exciting time indeed. And what a great weekend it would be if we could actually win the race too, huh?
It would be pretty impressive. So the other big team that are bringing an upgrade are Mercedes. Mercedes are bringing the second half of their big upgrade that they'd pushed forward to Miami. And speaking of correlation issues, we've talked a lot about the fact that Merc don't really understand what they're doing at the moment. I think that's putting it bluntly, but it's pretty accurate, I think, at the moment. But Andrew Shovlin in the post Miami debrief said that actually the updates that they put on the car there correlated well with what they found in the simulator. So they're happy that the car did what they thought it was going to do, which I think bodes well for Imola as well. And I guess if we put all of this together, we did a video right back at the beginning, at the birth of this channel, where we asked if anybody could catch Red Bull in 2024. And the first 5 races kind of made us think, no way, there's just no way that's going to happen. But we've now had one race that, okay, Max retired, but actually Ferrari were pretty competitive in Australia anyway, and eventually won the race. And another race in Miami where on pace, that Red Bull were just not the fastest car, and McLaren and Lando Norris were able to capitalize and got a race win. So are we now reaching that point where Red Bull are hitting that glass ceiling, and are the other teams now starting to understand and get that correlation from sim to reality that allows them to actually peg that gap? Ammar, I'm asking you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Are we going to have some competition for the rest of this season?
Yes, we are. And here's why. Let's go back to the start of 2022, right? Yes, Red Bull nailed the concept, but Ferrari were pretty competitive, but for their own strategic wrongdoings and all the loads of things that of course I've lamented about and cried about and all of the above, right? But they did have a competitive car, and what Fred Vasseur did when he came in last year is he kind of hit the reset button on a lot of things that were happening. I think one of the things they went back and did is they looked at all the features of that first car that your guy Mattia developed, and then kind of went back and did some soul searching, some looking in the mirror and say, okay, where do we actually believe this car will be at in terms of its strength, its mechanical grip, aerodynamics, all of that, and they focused on that. And so what I'm trying to say here is that we really go back to the start of this formula, right? These set of regulations. Ferrari were kind of there, but they took that 2 steps forward and they had to kind of take 4 steps back. And then now they're kind of coming back, and you can see how they're working. You can just kind of, sometimes it's not even just the results itself, but you can read body language. You can see how they're conducting races. You can see all of that, and there is this newfound confidence in the drivers as well, which I think says a lot. So I do think that we will get a very competitive, 18 race, whatever is remaining of the season. I'd like to agree with Fred Vasseur and say that Miami has shown now that when Red Bull are put out of their comfort zone, they can be beaten. Now, will it be that easy over and over again? I think it's fair to look at Miami and say that the damage that Max did to his car probably affected him. They were probably not.
I didn't think that was enough to say
probably.
that. I still think McLaren were the quicker car.
They were, but I mean, there was also something about their engine being turned down slightly because of the cooling issues they were having. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe not. But I think that we're now also approaching the third year of this regulation set, right? So now at this point, I think you expect some convergence. And I think the question now is, can the other teams, Ferrari, and I'm going to include McLaren in this too, can they put enough pressure on Red Bull where it just gets them to do some uncharacteristic things that they have not had to do? And oh, by the way, in all of this, we're talking about Max here, but Checo is pretty vulnerable. And by extension, then, at least the Constructors' Championship is up for grabs. You can still argue that Max is going to run away with things, but look, it's not guaranteed that he'll win every race now. I think that's fair to say. And therefore, again, look, if you're going into this, of course, Red Bull are leading. If you have to bet money on this, you have to bet Red Bull. There's no doubt. And you have to bet on Max. But I think there's enough uncertainty. One, if we take a step back from all of this, right? The season has now become interesting all of a sudden. We're all excited about this. We're not having to talk about all the off-track stuff that we were just a few weeks ago, right? So I think that there's enough intrigue. And I've always maintained this. When you put the incumbent in pressure, they have the internal meltdown that's happening, a very public one at that. Oh, and oh, by the way, I don't think that's all completely gone away. As much as we'd like to be led to believe, that's all not gone. There's still the big question of what will Max do. There's still the bad juju from the Adrian Newey move, and then the henceforth really Christian Horner undermining his contributions. It couldn't have manifested itself in a more accurate way in what Miami was, right? So I think that not one element on its own, but these elements put together, that's kind of what leads to, maybe the downfall of Red Bull. And I'm not going to call that just yet, but let's wait and see how these couple of races play out, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think the Red Bull stuff that's going on came out of the left field for me. It's not normally what happens with Red Bull, certainly, and it's not really what I've seen at a dominant team. It tends to be that people's the personnel within a team just reach the end, and it's time to stop. In terms of the constructors, yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm not really that bothered. Like, if Red Bull win the constructors, they win the constructors. If Verstappen wins the drivers, he wins the drivers. I just want there to be a challenge. I just want something to see on track that isn't just one car driving off into the distance. So Checo finishing sixth every race, and Red Bull not getting the constructors because of that makes very little difference to me. I just want to see some action at the front of Miami. At least gave me a little bit of that.
What I would say, though, is by that, you will get some more action, right? Because Red Bull will not be able to compete in the way that they have. Now, look, Max has been so far out and so dominant that it's not matter.
Last year didn't make any difference.
But you never know. Like, look, now you have two teams coming at it. And I think this is the big key, right? Are McLaren and Ferrari going to fight each other to the point where it does benefit Red Bull? We talk about, the two dominant drivers or one supporting the other. I mean, you can kind of have that same discussion in two teams that are kind of going after it. But I think between what Ferrari is doing and what McLaren is also doing, right, with Zach Brown being so publicly aggressive, I think you kind of see this where they're just trying to shake Red Bull enough, right, to the point where you hope that they fold like a pack of cards. Will it actually happen? Who knows? Maybe not. But
okay,
that's what you
so
want.
I'm just gonna push back a little bit because I don't think this is all just Red Bull falling back. This is Ferrari and McLaren starting to reap the rewards of the infrastructure changes that they've instituted over the past the past 24 months. McLaren came in with a brand new structure, and as we've said on this channel before, Adrian Newey is the guy that is able to meld everything together, is able to bring everything from every department together in one person. And if you can't recreate that, if you can't have one person, you have to be able to recreate it with different people. That's what McLaren have done. Even though they've lost Davide Sanchez quite quickly, actually the structure they've got at the moment and the way that Andrea Stella has been able to harness that, you're starting to see that now. And every single big upgrade that McLaren bring gives them a consummate step in performance, right? That tells you that they understand their car, they understand the formula. They maybe didn't at the beginning, but they do now.
They do now.
And Ferrari similarly are doing this, the thing that they needed to do. I always talk about success in a team coming from three pillars, right? Technical, organization, and strategy. No, organization, you can call it operational, right? And they're starting to really hit the technical side of things now. They had it in 2022 without having the other two, but now the technical side of things is starting to ramp up. And if these upgrades work as expected, and you have some confidence, I agree with you that they might actually do what they're supposed to do, given recent performance, then technical tick, operational. I mean, they're doing sub 2 second pit stops at the moment, so boom. And strategy, for the first time in God knows how long, Ferrari are actually starting to make the right strategy calls. So yes, I'm confident. I think of the teams that are chasing, Ferrari and McLaren could actually make a fight of this because they're putting in the infrastructure changes.
And they have already licked their wounds, right? So we're probably going to talk about Mercedes, but they seem to be still sort of a calendar year behind, right? At least in the way they are now. Look, they could also make a big jump, but they do seem like they're just behind in terms of time and figuring things out. Aston's probably in a similar situation where they kind of look like they might be thereabouts, but their problem is, I don't know if their upgrades are going to work, but more importantly, they have a driver pairing that isn't great. They have one great driver and they don't have the other one. So
I think the drivers make very little difference in this, right?
Right, but I mean, look, if you're in a chase, right? Yeah, but
if this before, but Ammar, again, this is not about winning the constructors. This is just about, can they compete on track, right?
Well, but yeah, it is
one driver that's able to maximize what the car can do.
But you can't do that when you have two people on the. I mean, look at the other pairings. You have Carlos and Charles, that's pretty good. You have Oscar and Lando, that's pretty good. I mean,
but
you rank them and see where you're at.
Yeah, mate. The problem is though, they're looking good because their car is allowing them to do that. Fernando is outperforming that car every single week, and it's now got to a level where it's probably about fourth, fifth fastest on the grid. You know,
I don't disagree with that.
Mercedes. So if you bring the car up, both their drivers will automatically do.
Yeah,
better.
but I don't. What I'm trying to say is, you don't put Lance Stroll in the same category as you pick the other four teams ahead of them. Maybe even put Mercedes in there. Pick the weakest driver. By far, Lance Stroll is in a different state. That's what I'm saying. And look, I'm not saying that this is about constructors or not, but if you're going to compete week in and out, we know that both drivers are needed. You're needed in terms of how you set up the car. You might be needed in terms of how you. I mean, look at what K-Mag is doing for Hulkenberg, right? I mean, I'm not suggesting that, it's nonsense. But you need those two drivers to be there. And I think that, I mean, we all kind of know. I mean, the nepotism in the room does not allow for it, but that it is what it is. But forget it. Never mind. You're right. I think that both McLaren and Ferrari will be there, and I think that there's enough races left in the calendar where you can have a few things go wrong, like, you know, let's say not putting the brake on correctly again, or maybe some sort of reliability issue just in general, and that could cause the championship to get tight. Again, I think Max can win it all. You just never know, though. I mean, look, if there's going to be true convergence, I guess my question is, at what point do we feel like Ferrari, Red Bull, and McLaren will be at the same point, like within a tenth of each other, or whatever that can be?
I don't think consistently this season. I think next season we're on it. But
what is it that's not there this season, though? What is it that's not there this season? Okay, but why would it? So, but you say next season, but like we're still 18 races left in the season. It's not. Yeah, I mean, there's a season on its own.
But these teams don't have the capacity to bring 2 or 3 massive upgrades in a season.
But maybe these upgrades
the budget. McLaren have shot their load already, and I think that's the level that their car is going to be at now. Red Bull is still going to come with another upgrade. We know that they're coming with an upgrade in Imola. So is that going to take them further away? This is the thing. I don't know, and that's why I don't think that they will be.
I guess my question to you is: at what point can you be slow enough and yet be competitive enough? So maybe Ferrari and McLaren don't get ahead, but there's got to be a window within which they can do just enough to make it work. Like, you don't have to be the quickest car, the best car every weekend to work. We've seen that, right? But can you be close enough to where that can work? And yes, you might need luck. You might need some circumstance. It could be rain. You never know.
Yeah. The problem is, at the moment, it's still needing a bit of luck to put it beyond doubt, and it's and that's without Red Bull upgrading their car yet. So yeah. Okay, can we swivel quickly to Mercedes? So Merc are gonna come with the second half of the upgrade. It's probably going to be rear wing and beam wing. We know that from Miami, oh God, not again, from Miami right the way back to Jeddah, they've had some problems with the rear end of the car. So they go into fast corners and the rear end steps out. There's a brilliant shot of George Russell in the first sector of Miami having to put a dab of Oppo into the middle of turn 4 because the rear end just stepped out on him. I mean, that sounds so scary. But anyway, that's the problem. So hopefully the rear wing and the beam wing will add a bit of rear downforce to the car, some inherent rear downforce to the car, so they're not having to just put loads of a bigger rear wing on every time they want to settle the horse down. So hopefully that'll work. Merc, again, we keep coming back to this, right? And that infrastructure thing comes back again. From a technical point of view, there's no evidence really that they properly understand this car, despite what Shav is saying. From an operational point of view, they're happy just about to do sort of 2-second pit stops. They were doing 3+ second pit stops at the beginning of the season, so they've at least got that down, but they're not pace setting particularly, are they? And this is still coming back to their era of dominance, where they haven't really got back down to a point where they're nitty gritty guerrilla fighting. So they need to get that sorted. From a strategy point of view, I mean, I didn't really have a big problem with how things panned out in Miami, and actually they were able to unleash a huge amount of pace at the end of the race there. Like Lewis was super quick on the medium tire, but track position didn't really help him out. Big news for me though is that two big signings from Mercedes are going to Ferrari next season. So Loic Serra, who is performance director at Mercedes, is now officially signed up to be head of chassis engineering at Ferrari. And Jerome D'Ambrosi, who is the head of driver development at Mercedes, is now going to be team freaking principal. So from a management and a technical point of view, Ferrari approached some big people from Mercedes. The Loic Serra one, I think, is very interesting for me, because he was one of the guys that sounded like he was not that happy with the development path that Mercedes took in 2023 by just further developing the concept that they already had, and was keen, as we know Lewis Hamilton was, to sort of go in a different direction. So it's interesting to see him go to Ferrari, and I think that super team that we keep talking about, that Fred is sort of building up, the pieces just keep adding up, don't they?
Waiting for the big guy.
It's true. So you've now got Fred there, which I think in and of itself is a huge deal, given how he's performing and how he's sort of created that infrastructure that we've just talked about. We've got Lewis coming, known quantity, potentially Adrian Newey coming. But even if he isn't coming, we've got some of the architects of the good things that Mercedes were doing in the last few years coming over to Ferrari as well. So double hit, man, double hit. The slow implosion at Mercedes continues, and as with everything in Formula One, if you lose something and somebody else gains it, double hit.
So I'd like to reflect on that, right? But first, I'd like to remind you that in the wake of the Mattia Binotto departure and the Fred Vasseur appointment...
I'm going to come back at you about this. You keep going on about it, but actually what I said was I thought losing Mattia as from a technical standpoint...
All of it. Take it out of here. Like, see, look, all these guys wouldn't be coming in. And look, you wouldn't be getting Adrian Newey right now. That's sure as hell. I mean, he's not come yet. That sure as hell isn't happening. You know that too.
Yeah. But having Mattia Binotto as technical director and Fred Vasseur as team principal are not mutually exclusive. You could have done that, and actually, I mean, I know this is a silly argument because we are where we are now, but Mattia did manage to get that car to a point where it was the fastest car over the first half of the 2022 season.
Okay.
No? Oh, I'm lying.
We finished like 200 points behind them. I agree with you. Yes, he
Through
did.
operational and strategic issues.
Yeah, what does that mean? I mean, I ran a race and was leading the race 10 steps in, but then I finished like 11th out of 10 people.
So Mattia, from a team principal point of view, was bad. He was a bad team principal, but he was never team principal material. He's not a manager. He is a technical guy. And from a technical point of view, he did fine.
Okay, but they've been just fine moving away from his damn concept too, right? Like, I mean, that, so maybe, yes, you're right. Let me give you credit for that.
Have they been in the running for a title ever since 2022?
Let me give you credit for it because, yes, you did say that. I was being a little bit disingenuous by saying that. Yeah. I just think that we needed to get rid of all of it. Like, it needed to go, right? So, and look, I'm going to bring this back to Mercedes, right? Which is, they need to do a little bit of house cleaning, right? This is kind of, when you have an era that's been so successful. They've been so dominant in ways that even Red Bull quite have not yet been there. I mean, over the course of a decade, right? I think that you just kind of reach a point where it's good to clean house. So I think we had debated the idea long ago about whether Toto would step away, but clearly he seems to have reestablished himself and he wants to see the next iteration of Mercedes come through. And I think this is kind of what you're seeing with all the pieces leaving. I'm sure they're not going to sit idle and just kind of let things happen. I'm sure they're going to go around, probably go to Red Bull to poach more people if they can. I don't know if Jonathan Wheatley is in the plans or not. I don't even know if it makes sense or not. That's neither here nor there. But I think Mercedes is now going through that process where they're just going to go through becoming as lean as possible and then align themselves up well for maybe 26 or 28.
That really worries me, though. That worries me because
no one's going to say
that reset, that house cleaning, that becoming lean, all of those are buzzwords for we are nowhere at the moment.
Yeah, but that is the reality, right?
Out of the 3 teams that are chasing, 4 teams that are chasing Red Bull, Mercedes is the team that I have no idea which way they're going to go.
Yeah, we know. We don't. I mean, they could.
Every single race, they go, "Oh, we've understood the car," and then the next race, the car didn't work at this track. They're the ones that have no direction, and they're the ones that I find least convincing in terms of coming back at Red Bull, and the fact that they're losing people suggests on the outside, the optics of it are that the employees at that organization are voting with their feet and are happy to go to organizations where they can see that there is potential for better performance. And that's what Loic and Jerome, I think, are doing. And it just confirms my worst fears about Mercedes.
I think you're absolutely right to be concerned. And I don't think we should look at them as, we shouldn't be pooping all over them, right? Look, they had a very dominant run. These runs come to an end. These things go in cycles. Look, as a Ferrari fan, I know this all well and true, right? For years now, it's been so long, right? And these things happen. And I think that no one's going to say it up front, but you're right. People are talking by their actions, right? You're not hearing words, but you're seeing actions, and actions where people are just heading out for the exit. And I think Red Bull simultaneously on the other side is going through something like that of its own, although you would not have predicted for it to happen quickly, but for an entirely different set of circumstances.
Correct.
There's stuff happening to it. And I think this is very interesting to see these two teams being juxtaposed against each other, right? Like and you're seeing people leave in waves, in part because, they feel like, they can go and make an impact somewhere else. And you kind of sort of expect that, right? I keep coming back to the Pat Riley quote, which is winning brings in a lot more problems, right? It's when you're hungry, when you're trying to aim for wins and you're trying to get on there, everybody's on the same page. With the second you start winning and you keep winning, it gets to people's heads, and you have egos involved. You have all these kind of things. So I think, again, it's not one particular circumstance that sort of leads to this. I think the biggest telling tale sign of this is the courting of Max, right? Like, I mean, this is Max or nothing. And I'll tell you why. Kimi Antonelli might be the next greatest thing, maybe the greatest guy we've ever seen, but that is still all potential. That is all TBD. And let's be honest, that's going to take some time to show up. Like, he's not going to be able to show up first year and kind of make that happen. I mean, it's just not going to happen, right? And they don't even have a car to do that. And the reality is, if they don't land Max, this tells you everything you need to know. And I wonder if people behind the scenes already kind of know that, right? Because they have access to far more insight than the rest of us do. And you can kind of see that to be the issue. Now, if they land Max, that's a game changer. But if they don't, then that's the issue. Because you're right, drivers necessarily don't make the car great, but having drivers like a Max, like a Lewis, change the direction of your team, bring in more talented people. You can attract all of this. And that's kind of what Ferrari is doing too, right? When they signed Lewis and now they're getting more people.
Yeah.
Could that happen? Yeah.
Yeah. Ferrari is definitely history repeating itself, though, isn't it?
Exactly.
But at a later stage in some careers. Yeah. Okay. Just swiveling on to the last part of this. Okay. Imola predictions, right? So I think that McLaren are going to be good again. I think having a race to have understood their car, and remember that Miami was a sprint weekend, so they didn't get a huge amount of running with the brand new update, right? They got all competitive sessions, so they didn't get a free practice session to really dial in the car. They will have that in Imola. I think that Lando got pretty lucky.
Yeah, we can say that now. We can say
no, but I mean intra-team as well.
Yeah, no, I know. We can totally say that because Oscar could have won too. Yeah.
I think Oscar is the massive dark horse from Miami, and I think in Imola, personally, I think Oscar actually had a better weekend. I'm going to put it out there. I think Oscar had a better weekend in Miami, and I think we're going to really see that. Evidence for that. So both cars ran with some upgrades in Miami, but Oscar only had half of the upgrades. And from what we understand internally, the difference between those two was about 0.2. So you'd expect that having the full upgrade versus only half would have been about 0.2. But in qualifying for both of those, for both of the competitive qualifying sessions, in sprint qualifying, Oscar was 0.3 quicker than Lando. Remember, 0.2 was the difference for the upgrades, and Oscar was 0.3 quicker than Lando. And in proper qualifying, he was only 0.08 slower than Lando without the upgrades.
Yeah.
I think Oscar would have been dangerous. And the way he took off at the beginning of that race, and the way he got unlucky with the safety car, and the fact that Carlos couldn't properly get past him without breaking his front wing, tells me that Oscar was on fire that weekend. And if things had played out for him, that was a win.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that we can look back at that race now, having given Lando his flowers, and accurately so to say that was a very lucky safety car, and the way it got timed, because I think you can argue that he would have been the fourth or fifth driver to win that race, right? Had the safety car time been differently, like you could have argued either the Ferrari drivers could have done it. Certainly Max would have done it. Certainly, you can argue even Carlos might have had a chance, but he would have probably not had that chance given his track position. So I think that's fair. I do think that what you're seeing from Oscar is kind of what we predicted with the Oscar versus Lando kind of video we did at the start of the season, which is he has not got the proverbial win. I know there are some people that believe that the sprint win counts as a win, but look, with the way sprint work right now, I don't think it's fair to call that the same as a Grand Prix win. Although a win is a win is a win. Don't get me wrong, but getting a race win is something completely different, right?
I had it the other way around. I think Lando needed a win to be able to open the floodgates.
Exactly.
Oscar, I think, would just keep chipping away. He would just, you listen to him on the radio, you listen to him in the press conferences afterwards, and it's just calmness personified. Like, even when he has a massive accident with someone, it's still.
But you cannot forget that Oscar is playing with house money yet, because Lando got his win after how many races? Yeah, exactly.
110.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I mean, Oscar already got a sprint win in his first season, right? And how that would have been how
Yeah.
many races? Like 20 races? I don't know, something like that. But and he is primed for a win too. So I can totally see him dominating the McLaren pairing. I think Imola will be particularly interesting for that as well. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think dominating is probably pushing it, but I think Oscar has got Lando's number, and it's what we said
Well,
at
that's
the
what I meant
beginning
by
of the
dominating
season.
him. I'm not saying he's going to dominate the field. I'm saying he's dominating Lando. It's getting his number. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
yeah, I mean, yeah. In terms of, I still think it'll be marginal. I don't think he's going to
You
wipe the
just
floor with
got done
Lando,
saying he
but
was down by only 8 hundredths after,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
actually being done.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I
yeah,
hear
yeah.
you.
Like I don't think it'll be a complete whitewash. I don't
Come
think Lando
on,
is a
let's
rubbish
double down.
driver. You can. I'm not saying that, but I do think that I think over the balance of the season, I think Oscar probably has the edge. Okay, one final thing for you, Ammar. You're going to love this. So, Planet F1 quoted a journalist last week from the Netherlands called Jack Plooij. I think I've completely butchered that name. Can someone please tell me in the comments how to pronounce his surname? I'm really sorry. Um, he says this: if Newey ever works somewhere again, it will be together with Verstappen. I don't think he will work anywhere to help Lewis Hamilton win a title. I think he gets so much joy out of Max, i.e., Newey's not going to Ferrari.
I'm not even sure. I mean, look, I would assume Newey was going to Ferrari to help Charles. That's what I had down. I don't know why you have Hamilton down there too. You guys keep assuming that he's going to go down there to win with Hamilton. I think there's more. Look, if Adrian Newey is going to go work with Ferrari, it ain't for Lewis Hamilton. Like I know they have to praise each other and all of that. The only reason you leave a team like Red Bull and go anywhere else is because the lore of Ferrari. It is the lore. It is to bring glory back to the team that hasn't won in, I don't know, forever. Like it's been almost 2 decades. We're really coming up on that. I'm joking, but we're kind of almost there, right? That's the whole reason for it. But yeah,
So I think
I don't know
I
about
think
that.
that just to that point, I think Newey's definitely going to come back after a little bit of time off. I think he's coming back to a team. I don't know which one. There's no way he negotiated the exit to his contract without any gardening leave if there wasn't an intention to come and work for somebody. Like it doesn't make sense to do that.
Yeah.
Second thing is actually my real reason for putting that quote up was how often do the broadcast team at Sky, Autosport, the race, how often do they get accused of British bias?
I'm one of them who accuses them of that. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't say bias. It's just more a fanboying. That's what I would say.
Tell me
Bias
what
is
this
a tough word.
tell me that this is not the same thing.
No, it isn't.
Tell me that it's not the same thing.
It's not even the same scale.
Newey wouldn't want to go to Ferrari.
Look, man,
because he doesn't want to help Lewis Hamilton win a title. He wants to be with Max. Tell me that's not fanboying.
I don't even understand. You couldn't even pronounce the guy's name correctly, and you want
What's
to
that got
treat
to do
him
with
as
it?
you want to wait.
Don't add a straw man to this.
Hang on. See, you're a straw man. I love what you're doing here. You couldn't even identify the journalist correctly, and you want to compare him at the same stage with what we're talking about, Sky, who is the world broadcaster of the race. You got to be kidding me, man. You just absolutely do. Absolutely do.
So if you're sitting in a bubble, right,
yes,
where all you hear is Max, 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 you're telling me that isn't bias.
No, because that journalist is not the premier journalist in the world. Like it's not. We're comparing apples and oranges.
He's on a big channel that does
in the Netherlands.
In the Netherlands,
only.
Correct.
In the Netherlands only. So sure, he would say that. Like, okay, so what does that even mean? I don't care. But what does that mean? I wouldn't have even heard about it had you not brought it up. The only reason you brought it up is to work me up like this. I know that.
Correct. But why do you have to listen to the Sky Sports commentary anyway?
Because they are shoved down my throat on TV.
They're absolutely not.
Okay, Shez, let me give you a lesson. No, just let me give you a lesson. No. If you go to F1 TV, but I don't have F1 TV. I watch ESPN.
Why not?
I watch ESPN, and they put that on ESPN. I don't have a choice. As in most other people don't, because that's the broadcast we are listening. Why do you think I've been railing against this? This has been shoved down our throat. I don't watch the F1 TV app.
What has been shoved down your throat, Ammar?
The Sky Sports F1 broadcast.
Okay, and what's your beef with it?
But I just told you that. Wait, why are you doing this? Now you're changing topic. Let's go back and focus on the tweet. Okay, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire here because
Yeah, do
you
it.
clearly. I mean, this. I don't even know what this guy's saying. I don't have any objection with that. First of all, anyone can talk about Newey. Sure. If I'm in Ferrari, if I'm in Italy, I'm saying yeah, he's coming to work with Ferrari because why not? If I'm at Mercedes, I'm saying he's coming to work with us because guess what?
But
him
he's
and
not
Max are coming
working for a
back.
team.
Say whatever you want, man. Who cares? We live in a day and age where people say, I mean, how many eggheads are
Sky
on
Sports
Twitter?
aren't allowed to say what they want. Is what
That's
you're
their
saying.
journalistic outfit, right?
They're not. It's
They're
not. They're
not a
not
journalistic.
journalists. No, Martin Brundle is
Go
not a
ahead, by
journalist.
all
He's a
means.
broadcaster.
By all means, go ahead and say it. Who's stopping you from doing it? Go ahead. It's not like they don't fan, oh, poor George going into the. Please get out of here with all of that. Like, come on. It's just too much of that. Oh, man, they did that. They did that. I mean, how many times have you heard Kravitz talk about poor George Russell's front wing damage, blah, 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 whatever. I don't want to hear any of that. I don't want to hear any of that. Yes, look, man, a journalist in Netherlands decided to say that. Okay, that's his opinion. Who cares? Sure. What's wrong with
Right.
it?
Okay. I just want you to. I just want that as a clip. Yeah.
Who cares?
For everyone
That
that's
one.
watching, that when Sky Sports are being biased, I don't want that. But
Yes.
if a Dutch journalist is being fanboyish about
Man,
Verstappen,
yes.
he can say what he wants.
And let's also add it in there.
Happy with
The day we all have to watch Dutch broadcast, I will have that same objection. Right now we don't.
I'm sure we will. If buts and babies. Right. Okay. On that bombshell, I think it's time to end. Ammar, thanks very much.
See ya.
As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave some comments. We read all of them and we try and reply to as many as we possibly can. We will see you in the next one.